The Great Supply-Side Scam, exposed. One of my favorite themes in American movies is the elegant con job, where the perpetrators pull off the perfect heist against all odds with strategy and wit. But clever scams can happen in real life too, and I'm going to tell you the story of the greatest con of all time. The con that outconned the best cons in history. The cons we admired, the cons we adored. None of them held a candle to this, the Great Supply-Side Scam, in 3 parts. Part 1. Reaganomics. The scam began in 1981, when Ronald Reagan introduced supply-side economics as the master plan to balance the federal budget and achieve broad-based prosperity for all American workers. Now, all scams need a cover story, and this one was no exception. The hook was this: we will cut taxes for job creators, that is, rich people, which will stimulate business investment, which will lead to more jobs with better pay, which will grow the economy. As the money flows downstream, the rising tide will lift all boats, and the federal deficit will just melt away. Now, it was important not to tag rich people as the winners in this nefarious scheme, so the scammers were careful to call them job creators, the virtuous members of society to whom all workers owe a debt of gratitude. Thus, the scam was born. Reagan and his team got off to a quick start with massive tax cuts for the rich. Unfortunately, we didn't have the money to pay all of the job creators, so we borrowed every penny of the tax cuts, which immediately led to a huge loss of federal revenue and a massive increase in the federal deficit. Astonishingly, Reagan tripled 200 years of national debt in just 8 years. In 1993, Bill Clinton did the unthinkable. He reversed those tax cuts and increased taxes on the wealthy. My, the Republicans howled. Over the next 8 years, however, Clinton turned a giant deficit into a substantial surplus and created 23 million new jobs, an all-time record, with tax increases for the rich. Part 2. Bushanomics. With Republican majorities in both houses of Congress, George W. Bush was able to reenact a giant tax cut for the rich, of course again labeling them as job creators, and immediately blew up the deficit again, turning a $200 billion surplus into a $400 billion loss. By the end of Bush's tenure, the deficit was $1.1 trillion, a sea of red ink that extended well into the next term. During his 8 years, Barack Obama painstakingly repaired the economy, increased taxes on the rich, cut the deficit by more than half, and ended his tenure with 75 consecutive months of jobs growth, the longest such streak in history, with tax increases. Surely that was the end of the supply-side scam. But when Americans elected Donald Trump as president and restored Republican rule in both houses of Congress, we got Part 3, Trumponomics. In 2017, they did it again, with gargantuan tax cuts for the rich at a cost of $2.3 trillion. Enough money to provide every American household at all levels of the economy with $1,600 per year. But all that money went right up the line to the top 1%, who got $51,000 per family per year. To, job creators. But that wouldn't sit well with everyday Americans who were unhappy with their situation. Where did all their money go? So we needed a new cover story. And that cover story was quick to blame someone else. Not rich people, poor people, black people, immigrants. Of course, the takers. If only that were true. But as we have seen in previous videos, during all 3 phases of the scam, the share of the pie going to poor people has been going steadily down, just as it has for the middle class. All their shares of the pie are getting smaller too. Only the rich have thrived. As for jobs, we saw that there has been a smooth upward trend in employment for the past 10 years, mostly on Obama's watch. And when we mark the point of the Trump tax cut, there is no evidence of any impact on jobs growth, not even a blip. How about the economic pie? Did that grow faster after the tax cut? Evidently not. No impact whatsoever. And finally, there are wages. During the 3 phases of this 40-year scam, national economic output more than doubled and corporate profits tripled, while middle-class wages went up by just 13%. So much for the cover story of lifting all the boats. On the other hand, the Congressional Budget Office estimates the cost of the Trump tax cuts to be $2.3 trillion, including $500 billion in interest on the loans. It is now projecting trillion-dollar deficits as far as the eye can see. Which begs the question, if we had to borrow all the money for this tax giveaway to rich people, who did we borrow it from? The answer? Mostly rich people. That's who loans money to the government by buying Treasury securities such as government bonds. And not just Americans, but foreign investors as well. So, with our right hand, we are taking $1.8 trillion in loans from rich people. Then with our left hand, we're giving it all right back to them as a gift in the form of a giant tax cut. Then with our right hand, we will pay back the $1.8 trillion loan to the same people. So up in the clouds, rich people get double the money, plus $500 billion in interest. While down here on Earth, you and I, mere mortals, are the ones borrowing all this money and responsible for paying it back, with nothing to show for it in terms of jobs or wages. That is exactly what I mean when I say this is a giant scam. To make matters worse, Republicans have been completely shameless about the scam. This was a bank heist at high noon. Because after the Trump tax cut, Republican leaders were all smiles and some were actually smirking. Especially Don the Con and Mitch McCon. And you have to hand it to them. What hubris. What bravado. And now the con is nearly complete. They just need one little thing. One teeny tiny little thing to complete the con, to make it real. To make a clean escape with all the loot. They just have to win re-election. When we vote to reward them for scamming us by re-electing them to lead our country, they will achieve true greatness. Imagine how exhilarating it will be for them to have secured the votes of the very people who are holding the IOUs in their master scheme. You have to tip your hats. But it doesn't have to be this way. We have one final chance to kill the con. One final opportunity to wake up, put our foot down, and wipe the smirks off their faces. By voting the Republican Party out of office in November, and I mean the entire party, we can undo the legislation and return the tax cut to those who truly deserve them. The working class and middle class Americans who've been stuck in first gear for the past 40 years. Hi, I'm Nate Link, and I hope you were enlightened by this video essay on the Great Supply Side Scam. To review the evidence behind this point of view, please check out 4 video essays on the history of supply-side economics on my website at snickersnack.com. Reaganomics Explained, Reagan, Clinton, Bush, a 3-phase experiment, Obama versus Trump, a 2-part bonus round, and Income Inequality under the Microscope. Thank you.